When it comes to The Tudors, the TV show, I always try to be fair. But I have to say that the second part of season 3 really got to me. I think it's probably because the two next queens that are portrayed in this show, the portrayals are ridiculous. I don't have any other words. I think there's so much to discuss in terms of the choices that have been made to portray Anne of Cleves and Catherine Howard. Obviously, Catherine Howard is going to play a big part in season 4. In these 4 episodes of season 3, I have to say, it was sometimes unbearable to watch. But this is a History Police video. This is why I'm doing this for you. So let's dive in and look at season 3, part 2 of The Tudors. In this video, I'm also going to track 2 kind of storylines. So obviously I'm going to track what's happening with Henry VIII, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, I've already said it. But then I'm also going to discuss probably one of my favorite characters in this show, which is Princess Mary. And here is the story with Philip of Bavaria, the courtship. And I think there's a lot that we can discuss about Mary's courtship. And I'm going to make a video about Mary as a princess, the real Mary the First. Because when you really understand her during these years of being a teenager or young woman, then you really understand the woman behind the queen when she became Queen of England. So first, let's do the 2 queens, the consorts that really annoy me, Anne of Cleves and Catherine Howard, and let's end this video on a more positive note with Princess Mary. This season is also about the fall of Cromwell, because obviously it's very tied to the annulment or the divorce between Henry VIII and Anne of Cleves. So it's also interesting to see how it is portrayed, and I think that the showrunners have done a good job of making some similarities with his downfall and Anne Boleyn's. I find it quite surprising that Thomas Cromwell didn't realize how ruthless and sentimental Henry VIII really could be. He should have known. He's the one who kind of took down Anne Boleyn, and to do that, he had to tap into Henry VIII's dark side.
Sister of the Duke of Cleves, Anne. You're right.
I've heard about her. They say she's of no great praise, either of her personage or her beauty.
Forgive me, Majesty, but on the other hand, such a match could have its advantages. This realm has long been at the mercy of the machinations of the French or of the Emperor, but Cleves is a member of the Protestant League, which daily grows in power across Europe and could easily rival theirs. Thus, at last, could England make its own destiny?
I think it's a very interesting scene because it's Cromwell offering Henry VIII the match with Anna or Anne of Cleves. And obviously he's very smart. He's talking about political and diplomatic reasons. He's talking about the fact that we need to stop being always close to the French or the Imperial, the Spanish, basically taking a step away from the Catholic powers of Europe. Obviously Henry VIII here is much more concerned with his looks and looks of his wives. And I think it's very funny because obviously Henry VIII at that time, despite the fact that the actor still looks good, the real Henry VIII was really not looking good by 1537, 38, 39. So here having this, discussion about it was very funny. There's a very good book that discussed the big fall of Henry VIII, 1536. He had a big fall and he hurt his legs, and from that moment on, he went really downhill in terms of looks. Susanna Lipscombs really wrote a very fascinating book on this called 1536, and I'll put a link in the description box down below for you to have a look at. Here the discussion about Anna or Anne of Cleves is very interesting, it's very political, and what's so interesting is obviously it's going to be the cause of Thomas Cromwell's downfall. He doesn't know it yet, but because the match is not going to be a success, it's going to create lots of problems for him. If you are interested in Anne of Cleves or Anna of Cleves, there are some books that I would like to recommend from a historian who looks at the German sides and German sources of such an intriguing historical character. I know she's quite overlooked for one of the 6 wives of Henry VIII. I made a video on her as well. She was far from being ugly. She was so smart, she was so intelligent. And there is so much, I think, that we can learn from Anne or Anna of Cleves. So here we have Henry VIII going to Rochester Castle, trying to surprise Anna of Cleves. And what I like in this is that the showrunners is really trying to follow what happened. But again, that's where they're making a big mistake, because Henry VIII, the scene that they're going to portray is just not going to work. Henry VIII is like barely walking, he needs help, he's quite fat. You know, there's not that kind of moment for us to understand what actually happened between Anne of Cleves and Henry VIII. So let's watch how the showrunners have done it, and let's discuss what I think historically really happened and what other historians think really happened.
Madam? I'm here to welcome you to my realm. I trust you're comfortable here? Before your journey to London.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
I will see you anon. I like her not. Do you understand me? I like her not.
So here they make Henry VIII and Anne of Cleves kiss. There's obviously no chemistry, that works okay. But the thing that I think happened actually is like, what we know is that Henry VIII might have like, being in disguise. He wanted to surprise Anne of Cleves. He wanted to know if it was fate. He wanted like, kind of a romantic passion, probably what he missed, honestly, with Anne Boleyn. Here it's not working at all, and actually Anne of Cleves didn't know that it was Henry VIII who kissed her, and she pushed him back and said, "Oh my God, who are you? Why are you kissing me?" And it was kind of an act of like purity, showing she wanted to preserve herself for Henry VIII, and he took it so badly. But here we don't really understand why he was then completely upset with her. It makes no sense. Then he cries, "I like her not, I like her not." But actually, I like her not because she rejected him. And he was also smelly because of his legs, the wound on his leg. And all of that meant that, there was kind of clash. There was also a clash of culture, probably a clash of barrier language. But there's obviously no attraction, and it doesn't mean that it's because Anne of Cleves was not beautiful. I think Anne of Cleves probably was. I think Henry VIII wasn't. And I think Henry VIII had to defend his honor and his pride, saying she was the ugly one, he was not. And that's where the clash really, really happens. And as you can see, the chemistry between the two, obviously not working at all on the screen.
Do you deny that you spoke to me of her beauty? Of the desirability of my marriage to her?
No, Your Majesty, and if I have misled Your Majesty and his council by commendations based upon false reports, then I am truly sorry for her.
If I had known what I know now, she would never have been brought here. What remedy, Mr. Cromwell?
Your Majesty, I have to say that there is none.
That's hardly the case. You've been following the Cleves agenda from the beginning.
Go on.
Today, the Emperor is the guest of the King of France. They have renewed their alliance. If we now reject our German allies, then England will remain alone and friendless and at the mercy of the king and emperor.
So Henry here is very upset. Anne of Cleves is not what he wanted, but Cromwell stays and remains convinced that it's the right match. He explains that France and Spain are making an alliance, that it's going to leave England alone, that they need the German Protestants alive. And you can see what's very interesting is like you can see the different factions. So the faction that's going to be against Cromwell in this show is going to be led by Suffolk. It's going to be, and it's why I think it's so well done in the show, though it could be done a bit better. I think they lack the complexity of actually the primary sources. The showrunners didn't go that far, but they still did a good job at showing the different factions at Henry VIII's court and how that, you know, eventually led to different deaths. And here I love like the looks that Suffolk is giving, because we know already, you know, they're giving glimpses that he's going to be the one pushing for the downfall of Thomas Cromwell. And he probably wasn't the only one. And I still think that at the end of the day, it's always Henry VIII making the decisions despite all the factions at his court. But it's very important for us to understand how factions had power at court as well, and had influence over the king. And, you know, when you have this type of good relationships or favorites, it does help you bring other people down. And Cromwell did it, and others are going to do it at Henry VIII's court. It's also true for other courts in Europe or even in England later on. So I like that portrayal, and I think it's really well done. It also shows that Cromwell is a political and diplomatic man. First and foremost, it's not about looks, it's not about what you want, it's not about how you feel, it's about what's good for the country. This scene is obviously going to be the marriage and the union of Anne of Cleves and Henry VIII. Still absolutely no chemistry, no connection. But here we have it, and they're together. So, you know, the match is done, the marriage is done. But Henry VIII is very, very unhappy about it.
How does your Majesty like the Queen?
Surely, my lord, I didn't like her very much before, and I like her much worse now. She is nothing fair, and she has evil smells about her. And I know she's no maid because of the looseness of her breasts and other tokens. So I had neither the will nor the courage to prove the rest.
That is so crude. That is so crude and horrible. The guy thinks it's like a first prize. Oh my god, like, look at yourself. I mean, obviously, again, that's also why I don't understand why they don't make him, you know, more historically accurate. But like, this scene is it's just so funny in terms of like, he probably said it, like he probably was absolutely rude about it. But that's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, but quite a funny scene. And obviously you see Cromwell trying to make things better because he knows in many ways that his place is on the line. He doesn't know how bad it's going to get for him. But you can see that, you know, he's really trying to make this marriage a success. Then Cromwell is going to see Anne of Cleves and try to understand what's going on. And she's going to say, I'm not the smelly one. The king is.
But sometimes, die Wunde an seinem Bein ist so schlimm, es eitert und blutet und es riecht. Es stinkt. It smells, yeah? You understand?
So you have Cromwell getting into, you know, these two people accusing each other of smelling. And he's like, that's going to be more difficult than I thought. It's quite a funny scene. I mean, it made me laugh, as you can see. And I think it's quite funny, but also it really explains like the incompatibility between Henry VIII and Anne of Cleves. Obviously, when you have factions, different factions, it means that you're going to have to try to put another woman in the king's bed. And here we have the introduction of Catherine Howard. And honestly, it is creepy.
Are you married?
No, Your Majesty.
Can you read?
Enough to write a letter.
Who writes to you?
Nobody.
Do you have many houses? The King of France left it as an offering to save his mortal soul.
May I touch it?
I hate this scene with a passion. I hate what they've done to Catherine Howard. I hate how she's absolutely sexualized. I don't think they would have played that game of like risking her to be seen completely, you know, promiscuous and knowing what she's doing. I think that though there were obviously rumors about her, and I don't think Henry VIII, you know, but I'm not even sure Henry VIII knew that she was not a virgin and everything. And as I've made a video on her, she deserves more credit. She was really let down by the people around her family, the women and men who were supposed to protect her, and instead really threw her to the wolves. And a tragic end is really hard to read, it's really hard to watch. But here I really can't stand this sexualization of such a young woman, even on screen. There's something very cringy about this scene. Obviously, putting Catherine Howard in Henry VIII's arms is obviously a ploy as well. Not just Suffolk, but also Norfolk. Still Norfolk, you know, the man who, with Anne Boleyn, so he doesn't appear here, but he played a huge part as well, because Catherine Howard is also, you know, a Norfolk woman, Howard women, so we don't have that tie here, but it's a very strong one. And it's a downfall of Thomas Cromwell. So here again we have this downfall linked to the failed marriage between Anne of Cleves and Henry VIII. And we have his scene of like his arrest, his execution, quite moving. At the same time, quite moving in the sense that he didn't really commit treason, but also I have a very hard time feeling anything for that man, knowing what he's done to Anne Boleyn, what he contributed to the downfall of Anne Boleyn. I think if you play the Game of Thrones, as Cersei Lannister said in Game of Thrones, the TV show, you win or you die. And of all the men who played the games, he was really mischievous, manipulative, in my own opinion. And so in many ways he got, you know, it's hard to say he got what he deserved, because I don't really believe in retaliation and stuff like this. But at the same time, I still have a very hard time to feel anything for Cromwell. This is the scene where Anne of Cleves is told that marriage with the king is going to be annulled. She's quite sad about it. Not sad in terms of it's still a humiliation. It's still kind of a failure. But obviously she's offered to be called the sister of the king. She's offered land. She's offered Hever Castle. And of course she understands that she has to accept it. She's not going to make a fuss. And that's why Anne of Cleves is the great winner of the 6 wives. Because after that she remained completely in control of her own finances. She was never, she never had problems with Henry VIII after that. She was really well treated, and she was independent and strong and free and empowered. And there's so much that we can learn about Anne of Cleves and how she probably is, very extremely intelligent to understand the political games at Henry VIII's court, keeping her head, but being wealthy on top of it. That's bloody remarkable. The other star of this second part of this series is, for me, really Princess Mary. I think she's absolutely remarkable in this show. And it's about her, and her match, or possible match, with the Duke of Bavaria. Is the link between her and Anne of Cleves. So we have some interesting scenes where we see how strong she was, how intelligent she was, but also how much she had hope for a marriage, for being loved, and for being herself.
Someday soon, God willing, Lady Mary, you yourself will have a child.
He has just lately emerged from his seclusion. It is said that, although he is little disposed to it, the council is urging him to take the extreme step of marrying again.
Marriage? I don't suppose you've heard any more about Don Luis and my own marriage.
As to that, Lady Mary, I'm afraid I have no news for you.
These two different scenes show how much Mary really desired to be married, right? We don't have this same desire with Elizabeth. Mary really wanted to be married to someone. We have a great desire of Mary to get married, you know, and I think with Spain is a favorite choice, obviously because of Catholicism, because of her own heritage. She's half Spanish. So here she discussed, you know, Don Luis, a potential marriage. And when she realized it's not going to happen, you can see in her eyes how crushed she was. And that's probably because she had such a strong desire to make her life for herself. It's quite intriguing how Henry VIII didn't put much more effort into getting his two daughters married when they were young, because it's something that usually happens to strengthen dynastic alliances. But here it shows you that it's mostly because Henry VIII was so obsessed with his own lineage, with his own, you know, marriages. He didn't really think about his daughter, who was of age, of getting married.
I say this to many people, Excellency, but I say it to you. That I agree with those who say he is a messenger of Satan. I swear he has poisoned the king's mind. And if I could, I would strip him from the king's side and burn him.
We have the scene here again where Mary, Princess Mary, shows her strength. She, like, you have a glimpse of what kind of queen she's going to be. Not just because she said she's going to burn people, there's not what I'm going to get into here. But you see that she really sees who were her enemies. You have that side in her. I think Mary was a very compassionate and kind person. She got in her wrong side. She had the same side as her father. She had the same fiery temperament as her father. She was a Tudor.
I have received a letter from a cousin of mine. He is Duke Philip of Bavaria. Philip would like to come to England and pay court to you.
Why?
He has heard many things about you, Princess Mary. Many good things.
I suppose he is a Lutheran, like you.
He is charming and very good looking. I think you might like him a little. What should I tell him?
Tell him he may come if he pleases and if the king wishes, but not to expect anything.
Anne of Cleves trying to help Mary with her marriage proposal, introducing her to the Duke of Bavaria, Philip, and they're gonna get on. We know that there's gonna be some sparks here. So Philip, Duke of Bavaria, the real one, is gonna go to England, is gonna court Princess Mary, and there's gonna be something. Obviously, would the match would have really happened? Probably not. Mary at the end of the day was a Catholic and Philip of Bavaria was a Protestant, but there were like kind of like a romance happening. We have some contemporary sources that discuss this kind of romance, though I'm not really sure how far it went, but you know, it's quite interesting that we still have this. And the fact that Anne of Cleves was really trying to create a relationship with Mary, and I think it's well portrayed in the show, shows that Anne of Cleves would have been quite a good stepmother, quite a good queen consort for Henry VIII's children. The match between Mary and Philip of Bavaria is not going to happen. Henry VIII is going to object to it. Probably because he likes being in control, maybe because he thinks that a marriage of, you know, his daughter would have kind of overshadowed him and what he was trying to do. Or maybe he was just self-obsessed. Or maybe it's just a combination of the two. I don't really know. In this season 3, part 2, so the last 4 episodes, it's quite hard to watch because of the different portrayals. I think they could have done a better job at showing that Anne of Cleves was not the problem. At the same time, I think they showed her as very smart for accepting the annulment and then thriving in England and at Henry VIII's court. The depiction of Catherine Howard is the one that really gets to me. and it only gets worse in the next season. I hope you enjoyed that History Police video, and please stay with me because then we'll review the last season, season 4 of The Tudors. Don't forget to subscribe and maybe to join my membership to have access to many more perks. Thank you so very much for being here. I am so grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye!